If you've been in an accident and wake up on an empty road, check 3 things. First, are there doors on the houses? Second, are there leaves on the trees? Third, do you hear an echo when you speak? If the answer is no to even one question, you're not in a hospital. You're not in a coma. You're in the empty world. And most importantly, if you see people, don't move. Because when I tried to call for help, my body turned to stone, and only a person wearing a glove could bring me back. My name is David Kirsch. I'm 38 years old. 8 months ago, I spent several hours in a place that shouldn't exist. Please don't explain this away as hallucinations or head trauma. Yes, I lost consciousness, but I didn't hit my head, only dislocated my shoulder and injured my legs. The doctors confirmed there was no traumatic brain injury. After that accident, I recovered quickly, physically. But what I saw won't let me rest. Too many questions. I believe I saw another world. Was there? No, not the afterlife with a light at the end of a tunnel. This was something else. I called it the empty world, a pale copy of our reality. The time I spent there, I remember clearly. Dreams aren't this detailed and sequential. I tried to memorize every phenomenon, every anomaly. I didn't imagine anything. This happened in late March, when I was returning from a business trip. I'd spent 4 days in Toronto at a printing equipment expo. I work as a technology consultant for a company that supplies card printers. I travel to exhibitions and conferences often. After flying into O'Hare Airport in Chicago that morning, I decided not to deal with public transit. Too tired. I ordered an Uber. Even though it's more expensive to get to Naperville, the suburb where I live, it's more comfortable. I got a particular kind of driver, a guy around 30, shaved sides, neck tattoo, a typical Chicago hustler for whom Uber is a lifestyle. In the car, trap and drill songs played one after another, local rap. How his brain didn't boil listening to this all day, I don't know. But he was quiet. Didn't pry with small talk about weather or politics. Just drove. That's what I appreciate in drivers. We drove fast. In the morning, traffic out of the city goes the opposite direction. Everyone's driving to work, not from it. When the sign, Naperville 5 miles, flashed by the window, I was already imagining hugging my wife, Sarah, and finally taking a shower. I remember, at that moment, a particularly stupid track about money and cars was playing, and suddenly the world was like someone pulled the plug. Yes, exactly like that. All the instruments on the dashboard went dark at once. The headlights disappeared. The music cut out. The engine noise faded, but the car kept moving at the same speed, about 50 miles per hour. All you could hear was the tires rustling on the asphalt. We were flying down an empty road. Not believing my eyes, I looked at the driver. Wanted to understand if he was seeing what I was seeing. But my driver was lying face down on the wheel. Before I realized how bad things were and tried to do something, everything around me went completely dark, like I'd fallen into a black hole. No sounds, no sensations. And then I disappeared too. I don't know how much time passed before I woke up. From that moment, I completely lost my sense of time. Before my eyes was grayish emptiness. You couldn't call it sky. Even on a cloudy day, the sky isn't this uniform. Clouds are denser in some places, lighter in others. This was emptiness. The same everywhere. Like a turned-off television, like a dead pixel the size of the firmament. I was lying on asphalt, very clean, smooth asphalt. Did I fly out of the car? Nothing hurt. On the contrary, I felt lighter than usual. No tension in my muscles, no heaviness in my body. I sat up and examined my hands. Everything was fine. Even my jacket wasn't dirty. After making sure I was intact, I looked around. A road without a single car, houses in place, but almost all windows were wide open. That's how it seemed at first. Later, I understood. Most houses simply had no windows. Some were missing shutters. Some had only one frame with glass, while the other openings gaped with emptiness. And the trees. God, how strange the trees were. These weren't even trees, but trunks with rare, particularly thick branches. They looked not like they'd been cut with a saw, but as if they were unfinished. The branches at the ends were blurred, smudged, like in a low-quality photograph. I rubbed my eyes, thought I was seeing things, but I still couldn't make out the ends of the branches. No thin twigs, no foliage. I looked around further. Grass. Where was the grass? On the roadsides, where there should have been lawns, there was only earth. Hard, smooth, like clay. I got to my feet and wandered right down the highway. I didn't approach the shoulders. Those unnatural landscapes scared me. There were no people around, of course. No, I didn't think a nuclear war had started or that the city had been evacuated. I immediately understood. This place resembled Naperville, but it wasn't it. This was another reality. I'd never been interested in the paranormal, never read about parallel worlds or astral projection. But at that moment, I simply knew what was what. A little later, I heard the noise from above for the first time. Elastic, voluminous, deep. It wasn't loud, but it made everything inside me vibrate, as if someone had struck an enormous gong right in my chest cavity. During my time in the empty world, I heard these sounds several more times. Sometimes it seemed like the rumble after an explosion. Sometimes a prolonged roar, like from a ship's siren. Sometimes just thunder. But thunder without a storm. This phenomenon had one peculiarity. It stripped the world of all other sounds. A second before the noise from above, I stopped hearing my own footsteps. Once during the noise, I snapped my fingers right above my ear and heard nothing. Complete silence, only vibration inside my skull. When the noise from above sounded for the first time, I turned off the road. It felt unsettling to be in open space. I wanted to hide under a roof. I recognized the street. This was a new district where recently built high-rises tower, condominiums 15, 17 stories tall. Typical American suburban development, identical buildings of brick and glass, wide sidewalks, perfect lawns. Only there were no lawns here. And I noticed the houses weren't just missing windows, they had no doors. On the first floor of one building, at the entrance to a small shop, metal legs from a trash can stood, but there was no can itself. Inside were empty shelves. I didn't go in, just stood at the threshold. Was I afraid? I felt uneasy, but I didn't panic. I hoped this was a dream and seemed to know that it would all end soon. I even felt curious and tried to study and remember as much as possible. After walking along the empty storefronts, I turned through an archway into a courtyard. Here was a playground, a swing frame without swings, a slide intact, a merry-go-round without seats, benches in place. Then I thought, the empty world is devoid of moving parts. But I realized this wasn't true when I reached the parking lot. A couple of cars stood there, old, rusted sedans on flat tires. The kind that sit in yards for years, abandoned by their owners, apparently waiting for a tow truck that never comes. These cars had everything in place: doors, wheels, windows. If you're taking my story seriously, think about this. Why was the empty world missing some objects but retained others? This is the key to understanding the nature of that place. Think about it. And then I'll offer my own theory. I shouted, "Hey!" across the entire courtyard. I didn't hope anyone would answer. I just wanted to hear how echo works there. My voice reflected off the walls and dissolved into emptiness. Same as in our reality. Then I entered the lobby of one of the buildings. Most of the mailboxes were missing their doors, but some were intact. 2 empty openings gaped where the elevators should be. No doors, no cabins, just gaping holes in the wall. I went up the stairs. What was interesting was that it wasn't dark in the enclosed space. Not a single lamp was lit, but I could see everything perfectly. Some kind of diffused light, the source of which was impossible to determine. The windows in the stairwell were in place, but the apartment doors weren't. Only door frames stood with protruding hinge pins. I walked through a couple of apartments. I don't know why. Just wandered unconsciously to calm my anxiety. The furnishings everywhere were roughly the same. Tables, present, chairs, absent, light switches without buttons, wall clocks without hands, faucets without valves, cabinets without doors. In dressers, only the bottom drawers. The top ones were missing. In one of the apartments, I found a strange object. A guitar. Acoustic. Only semi-transparent. You could see the corner of the room where it stood through it. I touched it with my finger to check if it was a mirage. The guitar fell to the floor with a characteristic sound and broke into several pieces. Then from above came that same noise again. It caught me off guard. I flinched, and a thought flashed through my head. What the hell am I doing here? For the first time, I was truly scared. Started imagining, what if I'm stuck in this empty world forever? Under the stairs, I found a rusty adjustable wrench and took it with me. No, I didn't think I'd have to defend myself from someone. Just with a piece of metal in your hand, you feel more confident. Leaving the building, I unconsciously wandered west, toward the old part of Naperville, closer to downtown. I was drawn home. Though I understood I wouldn't see anyone there, this was an empty, fake city where, apparently, no one existed except me. When I walked along Main Street, the main street of the city, which locals simply call downtown, I noticed a strange phenomenon. The surrounding low buildings, old Victorian houses, brick shops, antique stores, were suddenly illuminated by yellow sunlight. But the sky remained unchanged. Still the same gray emptiness. No bright spots. No sun. It was unclear where the light came from. Could it somehow be seeping through from our world? Then something strange happened with the adjustable wrench. It became soft, like clay, and crumpled in my hand. I raised it before my eyes to examine it, and it bent like rubber. Strange. It had been hard, cold. How could this happen? I threw the wrench on the ground. It plopped with a squelching sound, and a silvery trace remained on my palm, like from wet paint. My head became foggy. Thinking became difficult. I blinked frequently. I felt drowsy. The noise from above rolled through once more. I stopped to rest by an old abandoned motel on the outskirts. Riverside Inn. It closed back in the early 2000s when they built a new highway bypassing the city. The motel, by the way, had old windows and wooden frames, and boarded-up doors. I couldn't pull myself together. Breathing was becoming harder, and suddenly I heard voices, male voices, somewhere very close. I listened. Was I imagining it? No, definitely. 3 men came around the corner. One young, about 28. 2 others roughly my age, around 40. All were dressed in dark tactical jumpsuits, like military or special forces. Black boots, gloves tucked into their belts. They walked, crossing the street, not looking at me. These were people, living, real people. The city seemed paler against their backdrop, like a faded photograph. And I hadn't even noticed until this moment how washed out the colors were in that world. These 3 looked real, vivid, alive. I wanted to call out to them, but suddenly realized I couldn't make a sound. My lips barely moved, couldn't turn my neck. Tried to take a step. My legs seemed stuck in quicksand. My arms wouldn't bend at the elbows. I froze like a statue in the middle of the street. And then one of them, the young one, noticed me. He stopped the other men and pointed at me with his hand. "Look!" he exclaimed. The other 2 weren't very surprised. One simply nodded. The other said, "Yeah." I noticed the oldest of them was holding coiled rope with carabiners, climbing equipment. I tried to say I needed help, but couldn't. 2 of the men turned and walked on. Only the young one remained. He just looked at me at first, then began approaching. "Don't touch him! He'll surface soon enough!" one of the men shouted to him from a distance. The young one didn't listen and came up to me almost close. "Put on gloves!" the second one shouted. "I know!" The young one waved irritably. First, he pulled glasses from his pocket, ordinary ones, thin frames, put them on and carefully examined my face. I only helplessly moved my lips. Muttering something under his breath, the guy took a glove from his pocket, a simple work glove, black, put it on his right hand, and brushed me out of that world. Exactly like that. Just lightly touched my cheek. And I flew into darkness. I woke up in the car. A rescuer was unbuckling my seatbelt. My whole body screamed with pain, and I groaned. In the empty world, I hadn't felt anything like that. It turned out the car had flown into a ditch at about 45 miles per hour, taking out a guardrail. I spent the next few days in the hospital. I had time to comprehend what had happened. Of course, I had enough sense not to tell the doctors about this. Didn't want them to send me to a psychiatrist, too. So, what do I think happened to me? Most likely, the empty world is a reflection of our reality. Everything I saw, houses, trees, cars, duplicates of real objects. Why were doors, windows, and much else missing? I think that world creates copies only of things that remain motionless for a long time. Doors and windows are constantly opened and closed. Cars move from place to place. Tree branches sway in the wind. Grass waves. Chairs are moved. Drawers are pulled out. Clock hands rotate. That's why doors and windows that haven't been opened in a long time, and cars that have sat in parking lots for years, have reflections in the empty world. It's like water in a pond, smooth, mirror-like. But just throw a stone. For a duplicate of an object to appear in that world, time must pass. Fresh copies are fragile and semi-transparent. Remember the guitar? And copies are tied to their originals. Proof of that? The adjustable wrench. When I took it, it didn't stay stable for long. The metal lost its properties. By the way, a week later, I went into that building to check. Yes, A rusty adjustable wrench really was lying under the stairs. Believe me? The same wrench, with rust stains in the same places. How long had it been lying there? Months? Years? What I don't understand. How did I get into the empty world? How did those three men get there? Who were they? Ordinary people? Scientists? Military? Some secret organization studying parallel worlds? What did the words, "he'll surface on his own," mean? Are such cases not rare for them? Why did I seem to turn to stone when they appeared? Why couldn't I be touched without a glove? I also don't understand the nature of those sounds from above, and why sunlight penetrates the empty world when there's no sun there. While lying in the hospital, I tried several times to talk about this with the driver. He was hurt worse than me. Hit his forehead on the wheel, broke ribs, got a concussion. We crashed because his heart stopped. Arrhythmia. Doctors said he was lucky to survive. But why did it happen at that exact moment? And why did I black out even before the crash? The driver couldn't tell me anything. He'd lost almost all memory of that day. Only remembered accepting the ride request and driving to the airport. My face was unfamiliar to him. Later, he said he remembered me. I think he lied. I've told this story to few people. Not appropriate for a guy pushing 40 to talk about anomalous worlds and parallel realities. Once I decided to tell my wife, Sarah. She believed me, didn't doubt my mental health. That incident affected my life hardly at all. Except, after that accident, I no longer have ordinary dreams. And, very rarely, once or twice a month, I dream of that world, that empty city, its streets, the scorched park where tree trunks stand like posts. I see the city cemetery in my dreams, duplicates of gravestones without names. I hear those same sounds from above, and sometimes it rains in that world, destroying the fresh copies of cars that have sat too long in yards. I tried to find something similar to my story on the internet. Found nothing. I still have more questions than answers. If you've been in an accident and wake up on an empty road, check 3 things. Are there doors on the houses? Are there leaves on the trees? Do you hear an echo when you speak? If the answer is no to even one question, don't move. Don't pick up objects. Don't call for help. Just wait. You'll surface sooner or later. But if you see people in dark jumpsuits with climbing gear, pray they have gloves. My name is David Kirsch. I'm 38 years old. I live in Naperville, Illinois. This happened to me on March 23, 2024. If you have information about the empty world or have experienced something similar, please contact me. I need answers.